Recently, Robtop has removed the X and Y coordinates from info label. The reasoning for this was because people were using it too much for secret ways in classic mode. This had a side effect of affecting the top platformer community, since many players used coordinates to make some jumps way more easier, and this is what people think of the change. Maddie says, in theory, good thing for gameplay quality in future levels. In reality, people probably won't care and will continue to use lineups extensively. Mask says, it's bad for me, so it's bad. Paprika says, I'm neutral on it, but to be honest, I don't see the harm in keeping them. It's literally just like Minecraft chords. Can be super used to cheese memory levels though, so maybe it should be up to the creator. Lola says IDC whether they're removed, but they should either be removed nowhere or everywhere. Only removed on online levels is kind of stupid. Gab says it should be removed everywhere. Doesn't make much sense that it's even still in the editor since there is zero difference to an online level. The Fold says it's very dumb, I hate Robtop, and it made the game even less fair now because people with Geode will be able to see coordinates anyways. Quad Secret says I would that say if they had been disabled exclusively for classic levels, it would have been way better as its original purpose of eliminating the secret wave factory would have worked without its explosion reaching the entirety of the platformer headquarters. Also, the fact that it's able to be used in the editor for verification is stupid. At least make it a playtesting feature that can't be used in a verification attempt, such as ignore damage or start positions. Abby says, I don't think I count as a top player, but personally I think it's a good change. I think in general, being able to know the position of your player at any given moment is bad game design, and it not only leads to monotonous gameplay, but also monotonous levels being made. Most levels where you would use it have visual lineups anyways, so they can substitute relatively fine. Creo says ultimately for the better, but stupid at the moment because it works while verifying a level. Ibu says better for the game because it discourages rage type gameplay, but like everyone else has said, it needs to be blocked for the verifier too. Maybe it could stay as a practice mode option, but honestly at that point I'd rather use Mega Hack Meta Display or something. Part of my reasoning for not using it personally has always been that the game is just not as interesting with it, so it's good it's not encouraged anymore. I used it for Dusty Travel, but to be honest, it's just dumb for that level not to have a progress bar. Mini Masterman says, I don't care, no opinions, just makes potential secret ways less obnoxious. Super Copster says, so much more inconsequential than people seem to making it out to be. It's fine though, any lineup can just be visual now. The Army Ant says, I think it's pretty bad, it makes a ton of levels unnecessarily harder like Physics Issue Plus and Rage. I don't get why it would be removed in the first place. Atac says, I don't really care about it being removed. It was removed for the benefit of something way more people do, so it's probably better than top players think. Boplat says, my opinion is that this is incredibly stupid, because a lot of levels have become much more difficult, and this is unfair for players who haven't completed them yet. Some levels have become 10 times more difficult. For example, Physics Issue Plus, which is based entirely on X coordinates, has become much more inconvenient to play. I hope Robtop will return everything to how it was, otherwise this is very stupid. Dashing says, sort of mixed feelings, but I'm glad they removed it in the sense that it can't make jumps easier. Artamka says, I don't like it. Sometimes it's barely possible to find a visual lineup. Roddy says, okay, I just saw it, and yeah, this is not good IMO. You explained it good in the video. It's an issue for levels that rely on X coordinates like Rage, cause it makes everything way more consistent. I hope this gets fixed quickly cause I don't want to rely on my icon visuals to line myself up since it's not consistent for me. Ubot says, honestly, I don't like it. Like it's only used for a small amount of levels, but those levels really needed sometimes to be somewhat consistent. Electro says, anyways, personally never been a big fan of the info label coordinate thing being used the way it was in platform mode. I do prefer it being gone. Bora says, doesn't really matter to be honest. It was good for a few jumps, but at the end, you still got visual cues. macloris says X coordinates was so useful in a lot of platforms. I don't know why it got removed, but that's sad. Shroomy says, honestly, I feel like this would have been fine if it was found out super early, and not 2 years deep into GD Plat's lifespan. Gecko says, good change IMO, glad to be doing away with reading numbers instead of looking at the game. Visual cues can replace 99% of these lineups anyways. General gameplay quality should improve now that players can abuse being able to know exactly when to jump. Ivory says, cool. This commentator says, bro, Rob removing info labels is a huge downside, as not only does it prevent you from being able to do certain lineups, but now for levels like Dusty Travel, you don't know how far you're at now. Now I feel like you got to make a copy of the level and then beat it so you have cohorts, and then no clip the actual level, which might make a more confused and get your leaderboard banned. Yeah, Best says W update, all info labels users can take the L. Gito says it's probably for the better. It didn't feel in the spirit of the game, and even levels where it's useful you can just learn visual cues. Of course X cores often help you learn those visual cues, but I'm sure other task tools exist. Tonuclan says that's will be harder. Tio Italian Cat says it's good that it is removed, but it really does change how a lot of levels need to be beaten. Ayumi says there's no point of removing that since you can know the value through third-party software software like cheat engine and no one would notice. Dumb change that no one wanted. Straight up disrespectful to the player base. Bardo says, hey, I'm quite split on it because although yes, I think it's better to not have it considering it removes quite an important aspect of skill that's built up from getting used to platforming and things like visual cues. This should have been the case since the beginning and it seems a bit backwards to remove it 2 years into platformer when it's already been established as a viable tool. Eki Sasek says, like removing them now is a bit weird because now all the completions that were done exploiting it are up in the air. It was a bit interesting to have in the game as a direct counter to, as I said, bad gameplay. If your gameplay is made easier through stopping to check if you're at the correct coordinate, it probably isn't very good. Is it a bit cheaty to use over visual lineups? Yeah, it's very artificial, but so is the entire gameplay style it counters, so... Unknown Fox says annoying.